So just to show how into it I am, this is the one and only tattoo I have. Is the Greek key design. You'll see something similar here at the bottom of my copy of the Iliad. Right? Hey, it's Em, and the time has come to talk about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Now, if you've been here a while, you probably already know that I have an undergraduate bachelor's degree in film. It's a media studies degree, but I focused on film and screenwriting. And that my minor, well, we didn't have minors. We had what was called secondary concentrations, but was in classics. And so I have read The Odyssey so many times. And I prefer the Iliad, but for whatever reason, pretty much every classics class required us to read The Odyssey. Now, we read Fagel almost always. I think there's another F name. I want to say Fitzgerald, but I don't know if that's right. If I can find it, I will put it on screen. But those were the go-to translations. More recently, I don't know if you can see it behind me. You'll see I have Emily Wilson's translations of the Odyssey and the Iliad on my shelf. I really, really like those translations. So, for what that's worth. Sing, O muse of a complicated man. The first line of the Odyssey, more or less. And we don't even get Odysseus's name right away. And the overall story in the Odyssey, which I think Nolan manages to pull forward, is the idea that Odysseus, a very clever man, which is why Athena loves him, used that cleverness to propose the Trojan horse ruse that got the Greeks into Troy and managed to allow them to basically ruin Troy. And the one big rule in ancient Greek culture was the rule of hospitality. You were meant to be a good guest and a good host. When someone came to your door, you offered them food, you offered them a place to sleep, and the idea was that the guest, on the other hand, would never take advantage of that. The Trojan horse thing was obviously a subversion of this. It was meant to be a gift, and it was actually used against the hosts. Some would say all's fair in war, but the Greek gods would not agree with this particular activity. So Odysseus already had a strike against him trying to get home, and he does stuff that Poseidon doesn't like, and that makes it even harder for him to get home. But as you see, and again, this is pretty clear in the movie, all the places he and his men land looking for food and shelter, they either find very inhospitable hosts, or they are very bad guests, or some combination of the two. As with Polyphemus, who is the Cyclops, we don't even hear Polyphemus's name. He doesn't even speak in this, which is surprising. A lot of people have pointed out that, again, the Odyssey focuses on Odysseus' cleverness, and so his little riddle of Polyphemus asking him his name, and he says he's nobody, and when Polyphemus is blinded, and people ask him, who did this to you? He'll say, nobody did it. Haha. We don't really get any of that, but honestly, the Odyssey, the film, is really long, and so I think for pacing purposes, we really needed to trim things down to smaller events. Or we had to trim the various events down quite a bit. We don't get a whole lot of Circe. You don't get a whole lot of the time of Odysseus with Calypso. It's all packaged efficiently, I guess, in order to get the whole story. Now, the Odyssey, the poem, starts with Telemachus, and actually it's Athena who sends him to Menelaus. But we don't really see Athena interact with Telemachus in the film, as I recall. Now, to be fair, okay, so I saw it on IMAX, which was great, very immersive. Like, you do feel like you're on the boat and all this stuff. Problem being, I have motion sickness. So a lot of times when they were doing things with the handheld camera, or in the rapid cuts, I was getting motion sick, and it was giving me a headache. So I probably missed a few things just from that. I will probably try to watch it again at home on I have a very large flat screen, but it's obviously not IMAX. So maybe it will be less literally sickening for me. Did I like it? Yes, I actually liked it very much. Was it faithful to the source material? More or less. I mean, if you're going to adapt that into a film and make it not drag on forever, I mean, again, it's still a very long movie. But I feel like we did not get a lot of Odysseus's cleverness. That was kind of downplayed here. Even though people mention it, we don't really necessarily see it. We see mostly him in a power struggle with his men because they're losing faith in him, because they're not getting home, and more of them are dying under like these various circumstances. And, it's more that Odysseus's cleverness, or attempts at cleverness, is making things worse instead of better in some cases, but the movie doesn't really highlight that. I feel like the movie does attempt to highlight a conversation around faith in the gods versus, I don't know, practicality, a certain amount of self-reliance. So we hear Odysseus tell his men, the gods help those who help themselves, as opposed to his being devout. I don't know that would be true to the Odysseus of the poem, who, again, was favored by Athena, and because he was clever, yes, he relied on his own wits to some extent, but he didn't fail to, be devoted to the Greek gods, in my memory and estimation. So we do get a little bit of a struggle of the men being more like devout in the sense that they're relying more on the gods to help them than them having to do anything to get where they're going. And there's a discussion to be had there about people who hope and pray for things but don't take action towards the things that they're hoping and praying for. Obviously, there's a lot of talk of manifestation. And look, I'm a woo-woo girl. I've got crystals around here, and I burn incense, and I've got candles and whatnot. But I still understand that there's a certain amount of, you have to work towards your goals. You can't just hope something's going to fall in your lap. So that was kind of a highlighted theme in this. And then, of course, the other big theme was something that's more applicable to today's political climate, right? There was a sense of, we're losing our civility. We no longer are good hosts or good guests to our neighbors. The world is like literally fracturing and falling apart around us. The Bronze Age is collapsing, according to this version of the Odyssey. Like, they're like, oh, and it'll be forgotten. All of these lessons are going to be forgotten, and then people are going to have to go through this again. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was pretty on the nose. And I think people who don't want to hear that probably were some of the people who were not happy with this movie. There can be a whole conversation around the female characters in the Odyssey and in Greek myth broadly even. The witches are powerful. The question is whether or not they're using the powers well. You know, what are their intentions? And have they suffered at the hands of men? Well, maybe, but we don't get that side of the story. I think that's why there's such a cottage industry around these retellings from the female points of view, like the book Circe, like the book Clytemnestra, where we're getting more feminine rage, I guess, and empowerment. But yeah, overall, I liked this movie, aside from the motion sickness and the headaches. Do we lose a lot for the sake of cinema spectacle? Sure. We lose the whole Penelope and the bed thing. We lose seeing Achilles in Hades. We lose pretty much any of the other gods, you know, Hermes and all of those interactions, because again, I think the idea is to make the gods ambiguous here. Are they or aren't they real? Because we see that Odysseus seeing Athena is really him kind of projecting a temple girl from Troy that he saw murdered. So the question is he hallucinating Athena? Is she a projection because he needs to have this conversation with himself? It's meant, I think, to be ambiguous, whereas in the actual poem, obviously, the gods are not ambiguous. They're there. They're doing their thing. We lose that. We lose certain plot points, like the nobody thing, in favor of pacing and something being filmable. Watching the whole bed thing play out would not be particularly interesting, right? So let's get to the part where we shoot everybody with arrows, lock the doors and slaughter the suitors kind of thing. We try to make Telemachus a little more manly, I guess. Instead of getting Odysseus and Telemachus and Odysseus's father, Laertes, I want to say, like in Hamlet. Instead of getting, and we're going to stop fighting. Because the Odyssey ends with, like, them maybe about to go to war, and then Zeus and Athena are like, would you just stop? Because you're just going to make things worse. And so there is this sense of, or if we just keep picking fights with one another, like the sea people thing, I don't remember from the Odyssey. I think that was something that was made for the film. It's almost like, oh, we're the people they were warning us about. Also, we get this kind of Hobbit-esque ending where it's like, we're going to sail west to honor the fallen and leave Telemachus in charge now, which is, I'm pretty sure, and again, I mean, it's been a few years since I've reread it. I'm pretty sure that's not how this ends. I'm like, I feel like I would remember if that's what had happened in the poem. I just remember them with Laertes at the end. So yeah, so we do get some pretty significant differences, but for the sake of making it more cinematic, it's fine. I'm not mad about it. If it would get people to go read the Odyssey, I'd be happy, but I don't think the kinds of people who are going to go to see a movie like the Odyssey are the kinds of people who are going to sit down and read an ancient epic poem by Homer. So I don't know that there's a lot of overlap there. I do think Christopher Nolan makes movies for intellectuals. This is true. But he also makes movies for just people looking for entertainment. Like, I think a lot of what he does works on multiple levels, which is why he's so popular and why he makes a lot of money. But the vast majority of people going to see the Odyssey either have already read it because they like the Odyssey or they like classics, or they're people who haven't read it and are never going to read it. I don't think this movie is going to convince a bunch of people to go read it and suddenly be interested in Homer. I think this movie does a good job of making the poem cinematic. It paces it well, despite that meaning that we had to cut and reduce and jigger a bunch of stuff. Chris Nolan can't write anything in chronological order to save his life, so of course we've got to get this kind of mosaic of now and then and flashbacks and whatever. And then I think there are, like I said, a lot of themes that are kind of dumped into this movie. Questions of devotion, God's being real or not, questions of political being like good neighbors as people, but also in a broader sense as countries, the fall of civilization when people start to behave badly. I mean, because they say it flat out. They go, oh, treat others as you would want to be treated, which isn't really the rule of Greek hospitality, but you could distill it down to that to some extent. That's still really not it, but it's close, and that was the point that was being made. So anyway, sorry, I am rambling. I had points that I wanted to make, and then you get me started on classics, forget it. It's over. So, and especially since it's a film and it's classics, this is my wheelhouse on multiple levels. My media studies degree is basically, hey, let's take texts apart. And a text can be a film, it can be a book, it can be a screenplay, it can be a painting, it can be, anything can be text. And then you take it apart and put it back together. And that's just something that I've been taught to do and I enjoy doing. A lot of people are like, well, doesn't it ruin watching movies for you? And I'm like, no, because I enjoy taking things apart, in this way. So for me, it's fun. Now, I mean, yes, I do actually still watch some films just for the fun of it, even recognizing that as a text, it's a mess or, there are big plot holes or whatever. I can watch things on that level and enjoy it on that level and still be like, and here are all the problems. I feel like people these days, there's a lot of, if you don't wholly love something and only praise it, you are a hater. And the truth is, if you like something, you are more discerning about it and more able to point out the things that do and don't work because you're invested. If I didn't care, I wouldn't bother to, say, there are some problems here. I'd just be like, whatever, I don't care. So it's not a matter of hate, it's a matter of an investment in the whatever it is, the TV show, the movie, the book. I think being able to openly discuss things that do and don't work in a movie or a book or whatever, that's not hate. It's the opposite. That's interest. If not love, at least some kind of respect for the material because you're taking the time. Now, some people just go in to hate watch or hate read or whatever. They're already looking for problems because they have an agenda, and that's different. Those people you can tell right away are just doing it for hate and or for clickbait or whatever. It's not my thing. I know, I'm probably pretty boring, all things considered, but at the very least, on my channel, you're going to get authenticity because you're going to see my face. This isn't AI, obviously. This isn't some scripted shit. This is me just chatting, and you can put on your headphones and clean your house. You don't have to look at me, obviously, if you don't want to. And I do this because I enjoy it. I'm not here for income or any other reason. I do it because for me, it's honestly fun. I honestly enjoy it. So, anyway, that is my take on the Odyssey. And if you want to talk about anything more specific in the comments about the poem or the movie or Chris Nolan or whatever, have that's cool. I like most Chris Nolan movies. I hated Tenet. And there are a few I haven't seen. I've actually never seen Memento. I know the story. I just have never sat down and actually watched it. I think there's a couple others by him I haven't seen. I've seen most of them. I like most of them. Let me know your thoughts about the Odyssey, about the Iliad, about this movie, about other Greek myth-adjacent films or books or whatever. I have only read The Song of Achilles. I have not read Circe or Clytemnestra or any of those others. But I kind of actually want to. So if you've read any of those and have a recommendation of which one is best to read, let me know that too. And yeah, until next time, take care.